Oh boy, yes, 59 today. So thank you for all the birthday wishes. I appreciate that. We've got some interesting stuff to talk about this morning. Again, as PM said, we apologize for Wednesday. I was looking so forward to it. Actually, Wednesday was really supposed to be sort of a prep for today. So if you've been following our Wednesday studies, today will make a lot of sense to you. But even if you haven't, you'll catch on. It's not that out of bounds that you won't follow with what we're doing. But it will definitely mean a lot more to you if you've been watching the studies. And as PM said, we're going to do it. We're going to pre-record it and then put it out on Tuesday so that you guys can catch up. We've been in Matthew 24. We started off in Deuteronomy, from Deuteronomy to the book of Daniel, from Daniel to Matthew 24, talking about the temple. And we're going to get more into that today. You can see the title of the message up there is The Holy Mountain. The Holy Mountain. Let's do this. I want you bow your heads with me and let's come before Abba. You guys know the prayer. If you know it at home, please pray with us. Father, give us eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart that is willing to obey. In the Master's name, amen. Amen. Okay. So, as I said, this is absolutely connected to what we've been talking about on Wednesdays for a long time. It's been months. We started this months and months ago, talking, like I said, all the way from Deuteronomy chapter 28 and what Moses says about the house of Israel. If they are obedient, such and such will happen. If they are disobedient, such and such will happen. And you know, as you read the story, obviously we know that there came a time where they were very disobedient. But like I think even us today, we are certainly, and maybe not all of us, but I say a large percentage of us, sometimes don't think that consequences mean anything or that consequences don't apply to us. I'm sure, and hopefully it's not you guys, but you see people that get pulled over online, watch the videos online all the time. People get pulled over by a police officer, and rather than just giving the ID and giving the registration, and if you get a ticket, you get a ticket, or he might just let you go, they start arguing as to why you pulled me over. And then before you know it, they're in handcuffs. This idea that we just don't have responsibility for the things we do, or that there aren't consequences for what we do. There are consequences for everything that goes on. It is just a law within the universe. For every action, there is an opposite and equal reaction. The laws of thermodynamics. It's just, the master says this way, whatever you sow, you're going to reap. Right? The things that you do are going to come back at you. There's consequences, good or bad, for everything that we do. And Daniel takes the time to tell Israel as they are in Babylon that the reason that they are in Babylon, the reason that they've gone into captivity for all of those years, was because it was the consequences of breaking the commandments, the consequences of breaking the covenant. And he tells them this is exactly what Moses said would happen. And of course, what happens? Jerusalem is destroyed, but most importantly, the temple is burnt down. And Daniel expressly says, what happened to us is to confirm the words of Moses, to confirm the covenant. For 490 years, we find out by Jeremiah and the writer of the book of Chronicles, for 490 years, the house of Israel did not keep the land Sabbaths. They did not honor the concept of someone working for 6 years, and on the 7th year that they are off. They missed 490 years of that, and because of that, they wound up in captivity for 70 years. For each 7 they missed, they wound up eventually 70 years outside of Jerusalem in captivity with all sorts of terrible things going on. As Daniel's praying and asking for forgiveness for all this, because he realizes the time is up, their 70 years are up. According to Jeremiah, we're going to be going home soon. But he wants to know what is next for the house of Israel. And an angel comes, Gabriel comes to him and tells him what's next. Another 497s, just like the first time. Another 497s come. Remember, our Yah is a Yah of equal weights and measures. And so this sort of balances it out. And they have another opportunity that the temple will be built again. They have another opportunity to keep the commandments, to not disobey the word as they did the first time. And then 490 years later, it winds up that they did it again. Except the second time, when the temple in Jerusalem in 70 AD is destroyed, it's not destroyed because they were idolaters, in the sense that they had Moloch or Dagon or Baal or any of those things. They had really drawn away from that. They learned their lesson, I guess, at least some of them, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them. But what they did was exactly what they did before. They refused the word of Elohim. First, by disobeying the commandments. Second, by not recognizing the one who is the word of Elohim. It's actually the same sin if you think about it. They forsook Elohim's word. And as a result of it, the temple would be destroyed. Just like the first 490 prophetic years, the second 490 come too. And so we've been talking about this for a while. I want to, with that as sort of a background in your mind, and here's just a picture up there to kind of give you a mental picture. The first captivity is done by, it's really not the first time that they're invaded, but the first time the temple is destroyed is by the Babylonians, and that's the one picture that's there. And then the second one are the Romans. Did I not have that up? Oh, it is up? Good. The second time is by the Romans in 70 AD, in a 7-year war that lasts for 7 years, and about midway in 70 AD, the temple is destroyed. You can go back and listen to all the Bible studies on this. We went through the history. We got secular history, religious history, Josephus, all sorts of information to show that what actually happened. What were the accounts of this event? Major event. With all of that as a backdrop, I want to, during the studies, and what I've heard from some people like online that sort of comment on this, like, well, no, the whole thing that Messiah is talking about in Matthew 24 is about the second coming, when Messiah comes later on. And there may be parts of it that are, but he's absolutely talking about Rome coming in and destroying the temple. Well, if that's so, people often, my question would be, looking at that, because I've always learned it, it's always been taught to us from a dispensational perspective, that Matthew 24 is actually about the second coming, when Messiah comes, and another temple will be built, and another 7-year period. So in other words, the whole thing happens all over again, rather than just looking at what actually did happen as the fulfillment of it. That being said, there is a prophetic element to this that is still future. And I don't think it's about another temple that's going to be built. They may, in Israel, they may build another temple. They may try to do it. But think about this, even if they do try to build another temple, will that actually be the temple of Yah? Will those sacrifices be accepted? Will it be honored? Well, it cannot be, because the sacrifice is already done. We are told in Hebrews, where there is a change in the priesthood, there is of necessity a change in the law, a moving, a transference of the law. We now serve Melchizedek, a priest, the high priest of Elohim. Of course, that Melchizedek is indeed Messiah. But this story is prophetic. And like everything else in the scripture, everything is what? Cyclical. Over and over again. And it's not that things happen exactly the same way over and over, but they are similar enough that we are supposed to take notice. This is how prophecy works. Prophecy is a little bit different than just interpreting the plain text that's in front of us. When you interpret the plain text, you have to interpret what is being said to the people that it's being said, in the context to which it's being said, in the year in which it's being said, what would be the norm for them. That's how you interpret it. Prophecy is different. Prophecy is telling us about things that are coming. And very often there is a cyclical pattern to it. Not that the prophecy happens over and over and over again. There's one fulfillment of prophecy, but there may be lots of patterns that happen to get us to that thing. And that's what I want to show you guys today. And believe it or not, the story of the mountain of Elohim, or the mountain of God, starts in the garden. In the garden. Like everything else, everything starts in the beginning. And I apologize, I don't have the notes for everybody today, but if you've got your phones, you guys can download them. For you guys that are watching, you can do the same. You can download it and watch it on your iPads or phones. But the Garden of Eden, Now I want to show you something. Picked out a couple of different verses here. This should all be really, really, really familiar to you. Neat picture, by the way, and I did this purposefully. If you look at the picture there, you've got obviously the tree of life that's right there. You've got the man and the woman standing in front of it, or in front of the tree. And then off in the distance, you see a mountain. Now, when you read the account in Genesis, do we hear of a mountain? No, it doesn't tell us that. And yet, it kind of does. It does tell us that in other places, but it also implies it. Here's Genesis chapter 2 and verse 7. It says, "And Yahweh Elohim formed the man out of the dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of lives. And the man became a living being," or living soul. "And Yahweh Elohim planted a garden in Eden to the east, and there he put the man whom he had formed." Now we say Eden, another word for it is paradise. It's also spoken of as paradise. But very often we think of Eden as, well, that's the garden. But if you think real closely to what we just read, Eden is not the garden. The garden was planted in Eden. I know that's not semantics. This makes a big difference. The garden was planted in Eden. Adam is not from Eden. He is from the dust outside of Eden. That's what it just told us. He formed him from the dust of the ground, breathed into his nostrils, he becomes a living being, and then Yah plants him in Eden. So if you're following the logic here, Eden is actually the name of the entire land that's there. Whatever's in this land is called Eden. And Yah plants a garden in Eden and takes man who is outside of Eden and brings man into Eden. Here is Genesis chapter 2, verse 15. It says, "Yah Elohim took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to guard it." Now, here's where it gets interesting. Those terms, to work it and to guard it, are actually Levitical terms. Now, just thinking of it just as the plain meaning of the text, there's a garden. And who works the garden? The gardener. So literally, the job of Adam was to be a gardener. That's what he was. But he was to work it and he was to guard it. Now, these terms should be familiar to us because we hear guard all the time. Here's the definitions of them, all the way down on the bottom of that. The word to work and to guard. The word to work is abad. It's number 1553 in your Strongs. You can look it up. And it means to labor, to work, to do work, to work for another, to serve another by labor, to serve and to subject, to serve God, to serve, and here it is, here's the meaning, to serve the Levitical service. That same term is used later on for the priesthood, that they would, in the temple or in the tabernacle area, they would work the tabernacle. And besides work, they would guard it. The word is 8104. It's the word samar. And it means to keep, to guard, to observe, to give heed to observe, to celebrate, to keep or guard Sabbath or covenant or commandments, to perform a vow. So we're familiar with that word because every time the master says, if you love me, obey or keep or guard my commandments. It was the priest's job to both work and guard in the temple. They were the ones that were sharing the word with the people. They were the ones doing the service. That was their job. These terms start here, though, with Adam in the garden. Chapter 2 and verse 10 says, "And a river went out from Eden to water the garden, and from there it divided and became 4 heads." So there is some sort of a river that comes down and waters the entire garden and then splits off into 4 different directions. How does water flow? Downstream. It starts up high and it goes downstream. Where did the water come from? it had to come from someplace up high and then watered the entire garden. Now, that's a hint that's here in the text, but we find out later on that in this garden, or in this Eden to which the garden was part of, was actually the mountain of Elohim. In Genesis, we are not just reading about a garden, we are reading about a temple. This is a description of the true temple prior to all the other stuff that we see later on that's going to come about. We'll talk about it in a second. And Adam is not just a gardener, he is a priest. And he is given instruction on what to do as a priest. Actually, he becomes the first king priest. The order of Melchizedek starts with him. The first Adam's job was to guard and to work, to obey the instruction and to work, and to share all the stuff that Abba had given with all the rest of humanity as time would go on. Here is number 4. I know you guys don't have the notes, but if you have it on your phone, number 4 on your notes. Here's how we find out there was a mountain there. This is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 28 and verse 13. Now, if you look at most of the commentaries, they say that this part of the text, that he's talking to the king of Tyre. Yah is talking to the king of Tyre about all the things that he did. And most of the commentaries say, well, he is, while he's referring to the king of Tyre, he's also referring to Satan. He's also referring to the cherub that covereth, the one that sinned and fell away from the holy mountain. And that may be absolutely true. I can't tell you yes or no either way. But I think, this is me, this is PD, I think this is talking about Adam. This is talking about what Adam did, because he's talking to a man king who has done wrong in the king of Tyre. And this is what he says to the king of Tyre. The king of Tyre was never in Eden, but look at what he says. You were in Eden, the garden of Elohim. Every precious stone was your covering. The ruby, the topaz, the diamond, the beryl, the shoham, the jasper, the sapphire, the turquoise, the emerald, and the gold. You know what those colors are, what those stones are? We know them later on as the ephod of the high priest. This is a temple term. Whoever this was is wearing the stones, or is represented by the stones of the ephod. And it goes on to say, the workmanship of your settings and mountings was prepared for you on the day you were created. You were the anointed cherub, messenger, angel. Now it could mean cherub, but it could also mean messenger that covered. And I placed you. You were on the set apart mountain of Elohim. Where? In Eden. So was there a mountain in Eden? Well, here it is. It's telling us absolutely. So water has to come from somewhere. From up high, to flow low, to water the garden, to spin off into 4 different directions. He says, you were on the mountain of Elohim. You walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. You were perfect in your ways from the day you were created until unrighteousness was found in you. Now, again, maybe this is about Satan. It's possible. But this also tells us the story of Adam. He was created in the image of Elohim. He was perfect in all his ways. And we now realize, by understanding the language, all of Eden, including the garden, was a temple. It was the place where Elohim walked in the cool of the evening with man. It is where Elohim dwelt in the midst of man. And he had a man there to guard and to tend it, or to labor and to guard it, to do the priestly duty. The first temple is Genesis. This is the first temple. backed up by what we just read here in the book of Ezekiel, telling us there was a mountain. This makes sense because if you fast forward in your mind, they get kicked out of the garden. Every religion from this point forward, of every god, whether it's Baal or Dagon or whatever god, they are always put their altars where? On a high place, on a mountain, up top. Every time you see revival in Israel, Josiah has revival. And they do the Passover, they find the Torah, they read it, they want to do the Passover. What's one of the first things Josiah does? He knocks down all of the high places, all of the mountains where they put all of the altars. It seems as though this story, the understanding of it, was even passed throughout after the flood, but it was corrupted as humanity moves on. Instead of it being the mountain of Elohim, it became the mountain of all of these other gods. Think about Zeus and the pantheon of all the Greek gods. Where are they? Or where are they supposed to be? On the mountain, on Mount Olympus. And you can see this whether it's the Romans, everyone has a high place. Why? Because Elohim's temple is a high place. It is a mountain. And they are mimicking what Elohim has done. Mimicking is not the truth, but it definitely gives us a little window. So, back to the story of Genesis. This is Genesis number 5 on your notes. Also Genesis chapter 3. Instruction is given to Adam. Instruction is given to the woman, or she knows the instruction. What are they supposed to do? You can eat of everything. Just don't eat of this particular thing. What do we call it when Yah gives us instruction? What is the term we would use today? Torah. That's what instruction is. It's when Elohim says, do this and don't do that. That's what instruction is. He gave his instruction to the priest. It was the priest's job to give instruction to everyone else. That's the way it works in a temple. And now we find out in Genesis chapter 3, it says, and the serpent, the fiery serpent, was more crafty than all the lives of the field which Yahweh Elohim had made. And he said to the woman, is it true that Elohim has said, do not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the Nachash, we are to eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim has said, do not eat of it, nor touch it, lest you die. And the Nachash said to the woman, you shall certainly not die. So what did she know? Whether she's quoting it perfectly or not, what did she know? The instruction, which means that Adam knew the instruction. They understood the word, because if Yah is speaking, we call that the word. He's with them in the cool of the evening. They hear his voice. They know what is required of them. And yet what do? They break his word. Where? In the temple. They break it in the temple. And they're told, if you do this, what comes? Death comes. And of course, the temptation here, or the lie is, no, you're not going to die. This is not going to bring death. And we've talked about that before. I don't want to get so much into that. But he tells them, you're certainly not going to die. He questions Elohim's word. And what do the man and the woman do? They eat. They disobey the commandment. And in disobeying the commandment, there is a consequence to that. Abba now has to confirm the covenant to them. That if you eat of this, you will die. And you're bringing death to all. And he does. Here is same chapter, verse 23. Judges them, judges the woman, judges the man, the grass, you're gonna have to, by the sweat of your brow, till the ground. Those are all other messages for another day. I want to keep on topic with the mountain and the temple. Verse 23 says, so Yah Elohim sent him out of the garden. Wait. What happened as a consequence of their sin? They were removed from the temple. Really, what's going to wind up happening is the temple is going to be removed from them eventually. But they are removed. They are kicked out of the temple. And Elohim sent him out of the Garden of Eden to till the ground from which he was taken. And he drove the man out. And he placed cherubim. And you can see on the picture there, just an AI version of it. He placed cherubim, this is important, he placed cherubim at the east of the Garden of Eden. So where was the entrance in to the garden? In the east. If you wanted to get back into the garden, or let me say it this way, if you wanted to get into the temple, you had to come in how? By the east. And so he sets up these two angels, with a flaming sword. It says a flaming sword which turned every way, to guard the tree of life, because now that they are in this situation, he does not want them having access to the tree of life. Not yet. But the whole story from cover to cover is to bring all of us back to access to the tree of life. Better than that, it's to bring all of us back to the mountain of Elohim, back to this spot. But the only way there is through the east. But the path is blocked by two angels and a fiery sword. Everybody's got the visual picture with me, right? I know, we're going around the mountain. We always do that. You know that. It's all going to make sense in a second. Story goes on. The flood comes. After the flood, Noah, Abraham, so forth and so on. Abraham has his children, and his children, eventually Jacob has the 12 tribes. The 12 tribes, they go into Egypt. They are there in Egypt. Abba is now going to get them out of Egypt, brings them out, brings them to where? The mountain. He brings them to the mountain. So now what we're watching are examples, stories, prophecies, hints of how to get back to where? The true mountain, where you can eat of the tree of life. But right now there's two angels guarding it and a flaming sword that will not allow you in. So to begin to teach the lesson over again, because what is now in humanity? Death is, disobedience is, multiple other gods. Babylon has happened. Languages are changed. People are worshiping all sorts of gods on ziggurats. What a ziggurat is, like a pyramid. You know what it is? It's a little mountain. And on the top of the mountain was their altar to whatever god it happened to be. So Elohim, with all the corruption that's going on, picks the house of Israel to begin to tell the story to them, to begin to tell the story to all of us of how we're going to get past those two angels because of death inside of us, how we're going to get past those two angels and have access to that tree of life. Because while there's death inside of us, we have no access to that. That's what the whole kicking out of the temple or the garden was all about. Moses gets to the mountain, and amongst the Torah, the commandments, the stones, all of that, Abba tells Moses to build a tabernacle. Because I want to dwell in the midst of my people. Just like he did where? Adam walked with Yah in the cool of the evening. He walked in the midst of his people. So he's beginning to tell them this story. And of course, he does it from the mountain. Voice comes out, gives them the commandments. People are all freaked out over it. But then he begins to give them instruction for a priesthood. And the priesthood builds the people build the tabernacle. As we saw today, they gave the oil in the Torah reading we had. They brought the gold, they brought the silver, all the workmen came, they all built it. But Moses is told, you have to build this tabernacle, this tent, exactly the way I've shown you. What you went up to the mountain to see, that's what the tabernacle has to look like. Why? Because it's a prophecy of the original mountain. It's a way of learning what the original mountain's about. So they build the tabernacle. It's made of all sorts of different materials. It's got this white fence all the way around it. And the only way into this tabernacle is from what direction? You think that's by accident? Or is Elohim trying to get our attention? You can only enter into this tabernacle by the east. So every time it's set up, that gate, the one gate, the only gate in, must face the east. And on the gate, and even as you got into, the priests were only allowed to a certain place, but the person wearing the ephod, all the stones, the high priest, he was allowed to go past the curtain, the veil, and you can see a picture of it. I think it's the picture up above. On the veil of the curtain, the place where no one was allowed to go, now the instruction is one person can go who wears the ephod, can come on in, but as that curtain's closed, what is guarding whatever's behind that curtain? 2 cherubim. And even when you open up the curtain and you see the Ark of the Covenant, what's guarding that? 2 cherubim. And over the center of it would be this bright, incredible light that they'd have to put incense in there and smoke the whole place up, a flaming sword, before he gives his offering for Yom Kippur, for himself, for the people. This is all the picture of Eden, of the first temple that they got kicked out of. He's trying to introduce them the way back to the temple. And he gives them the instructions, the commandments, what to do, what not to do, how to approach, how not to approach. And what winds up happening to the house of Israel over time concerning the tabernacle, just the tabernacle. Review for a second. They got kicked out of the first temple, flaming sword. Now they have the tabernacle. What do you think's going to happen? They got kicked out. Why? Because they disobeyed the instruction. Now they've got the tabernacle, and guess what's going to happen? Everything's cyclical. They're going to disobey the instruction. Eli, the priest, his sons, Hophni and Phinehas, are horrible priests. They turn the tabernacle into a joke. They do everything they're not supposed to do. They take the ark out. They bring it to battle. The Philistines come, destroy the army, destroy Phinehas' sons, take the ark, take the actual tabernacle, take it down. And Israel is destroyed by an outside enemy. Why? Because they disobeyed the commandments. And they were kicked out of the tabernacle. And death came, just like the first time. Here is Jeremiah chapter 7. Listen to the words of Jeremiah, talking to the people. Now he's talking about the first temple, but he mentions the tabernacle at Shiloh. Jeremiah 7, verse 8, he says, "See, you are trusting in false words which do not profit. You're stealing, murdering, committing adultery, swearing falsely, burning incense to Baal, walking after other mighty ones which you have not known." So basically, as a summary, what was the house of Israel doing? Breaking the commandments, the instruction. And he's not just talking about people, he's talking about the priesthood. A couple of chapters earlier, that the priesthood is doing this as well. It says, "And you came and stood before me in this house, which is called by my name, and said, we have been delivered." So they're doing all of these crazy things, but they somehow think they can do these things and still go where? To the temple. That they can still do the things that they're doing. They could still be the priest. They could still be, so long as they're wearing the ephod, the robes, they can do these things and still come to Elohim's temple and be delivered. That word delivered we talked about last week means saved. In order to do all these abominations. Verse 11. Listen to what Elohim says through Jeremiah about, now he's talking about the temple, but we're going to see in a second, he's also talking about the tabernacle. He says, "Has this house which is called by my name become a den of robbers in your eyes?" That should sound really familiar to us, right? Who else says that before the destruction of another temple? Messiah does. So he's talking about the temple here, but look at what he says. To show them that there are consequences. To show them that Elohim will confirm the covenant. He'll have mercy, he'll have grace, he'll have patience, and he'll show, and he'll show, and he'll show. But at some point, he must confirm the covenant. It says, "Look, I even myself have seen it, declares Yahweh." Now listen to this. "But go now to my place at Shiloh. That's where they set up the tabernacle. That's where Eli was. That's where the whole worship of Israel was before the temple of Solomon is built. But go now to my place at Shiloh, where I set my name at the first, and see what I did to it because of the evil of my people Israel. So now we've got them kicked out of the garden for disobeying the instruction, which is the first temple, the real temple. They're kicked now out of Shiloh for the same sin of disobedience. Now they've got the temple of Solomon built. And this is what Jeremiah is actually talking about. Listen to the words of Solomon at the building of the temple. This is quoted by everybody and their uncle in the whole religious world, not understanding the magnitude of what's being said here, or the patterns that lead up to this particular instance, because this is now happening again and again. Differently, but close enough that if you have an eye to see it, you can say, oh yeah, this is the same story that's being told to us again and again. Here's 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14. Solomon's building the temple. Elohim speaks and says, and my people, upon whom my name is called, that's where his temple is, if my people which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their evil ways, then I shall hear from the heavens and forgive their sin and heal their land. Now my eyes are open and my ears are attentive to the prayer of this place. It's the temple. And now I have chosen and set this house apart for my name to be there forever, and my eyes and my heart shall always be there. Where was the temple built? In Jerusalem. On a what? Mountain. Mount Zion. The mark. That's what Zion means, the mark. The temple was built on a mountain, just like the first one. This is giving us patterns. But that's not all there. I know this is all what everybody quotes, but that's not all there is said in 2 Chronicles chapter 7. Listen to verse 19. But if you turn away and forsake my laws and my commandments, which I have set before you, and you shall go and serve other mighty ones and bow yourself to them, then I shall pluck them from my land, which I have given to them, and this house, which I have set apart for my name, I shall cast out of my sight and make it a proverb and a mockery among all peoples. What's the warning? If you disobey, I'm going to destroy the temple and kick you out. He did it in the garden. He did it in Shiloh. And now there's a temple sitting in Jerusalem. And he's going to confirm his covenant as Babylon comes in and destroys them. Thus, the book of Daniel that we've been talking about. All of this should now kind of be obvious that this is a pattern. This keeps happening. Daniel tells us, as we just said before, another 490 years, prophetic years. It's not even years, but sevens are coming. And in that time, Elohim's going to do a whole bunch of things. He's going to put an end to all transgression. He's going to anoint the most holy. The tabernacle or the temple will be built again, and the Mashiach will be cut off, karat, killed within that 497s. Messiah comes, eventually comes in that 497s time frame. Messiah's ministry opens up at the temple, and he knocks over the table changers and makes a whip and starts, doing all this crazy stuff. You've made my father's house a den of thieves. If you knew your Bible, if you were standing there in the first century and you heard him, if you knew who he was, and you heard him say that, that should have made you stop and take notes. Because you know what he just said to them? Read Jeremiah. Read what happened to Jeremiah. And then what's the next thing he says? Destroy this temple, and I will raise it in 3 days. Of course, they say, oh, we took 40 years to build this. Of course, he's talking about he is the temple. The temple, the one from the garden. It's him. But he says, destroy this temple. And of course, they don't get it. The entire ministry goes on. At the end of the ministry, Messiah rides into Jerusalem. They have officially rejected them. The people are saying, Hosanna, Hosanna, save us now, save us now. And the Pharisees and the Sadducees decide he's got to die. We got to get rid of him. Tell your disciples to shut up. They don't know what they're doing. Calm down the people. Stop what they're doing. And Messiah says to them, again, you have made my Father's house a den of thieves. And then looks over Jerusalem, and he cries over her. Here's Matthew chapter 23 and verse 37, number 9. And he says, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, killing the prophets and stoning those who are sent to her. How often I wish to gather your children together the way a hen gathers her chickens under her wings, but you would not. See, your house is left to you waste. Exactly what has happened in the past is about to what? Happen again. He is going to confirm the words of the covenant again, as he's done multiple times throughout history. See, your house is left to you desolate. Chapter 24, verse 1. It says, in going out, Yeshua or Yahusha went away from the set-apart place, and his taught ones came near to point out to him all the buildings of the temple, the set-apart place. And Yeshua said to them, do you see all of these? Truly, I say to you, not one stone shall be left here upon another at all, which shall not be thrown down. What did he just prophesy? The destruction of the temple. And about 40 years later, what happens? The destruction of the temple. For now, Eden, Shiloh, Solomon, now Herod's temple. For the fourth time now, after giving us the instruction on how to approach and what gate to come in and what to wear and what all of this means, if we want to get back to the actual temple, this is the pattern. You cannot come to eat of the tree of life till you learn what this pattern is, how you approach. And yet, Elohim does want us to eat of the tree of life. But he has to keep his word. He has to confirm his covenant, confirm his instruction. So, I want you to take a look at this. I went a little bit too far. In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 24, I don't know why, but it didn't print out here, but off the top of my head. The Gospel of Luke, chapter 24, the master's killed. Well, actually, chapters before that, he's killed. He's put on a cross. He dies. He's put in the grave. 3 days later, of course, he raises from the dead. And Miriam, two Miriams, three ladies, three women, go to the tomb to anoint his body, not realizing that Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus already did it. They go to anoint his body for burial. And as they get to the tomb, they find out that the stone's been rolled away. And who's standing there? You can see on the picture up there. I don't know why that came out so small. Who's standing at the entrance to the tomb? Two angels who are guarding the way to the tree of life, because you cannot approach it so long as you are in death. Now the high priest has come. When Miriam is crying and wondering where he is, and Mashiach appears, and he begins speaking to her. Does anybody remember what she says? What does she think he is? The gardener. Where does this whole event take place? In the garden. And she thinks he's the gardener. Come on. Come on. This is the consistency all the way through the book. these patterns that we're supposed to notice over and over and over again, because this is how the way to the tree of life was open. This is how what only the high priest could do to go into that place where the angels were guarding with death. That's what Messiah does. In his crucifixion with death, he passes past those angels from the east, comes into the east, comes into the grave. The angels are there. His blood is put on the altar. His blood is spilt out for all of humanity. And now death is defeated. Destroy this body, and in 3 days I will raise it up. Now that death has been defeated, what can now happen? The way to the true garden is open, because the true gardener has come. And he's not just a gardener, because Adam wasn't just a gardener. What was he? Priest. He was priest. Messiah is not just a gardener. He's what? High priest. The one who wears the ephod. The one who wears the ephod. Who walks in the midst of the fiery stones. Who has restored life to all of us. Now the way to the tree of life is there. And who really is the tree of life? Yes, it's whatever tree there was in the garden, but ultimately the tree of life is Messiah, because we are to eat of his body and to drink of his blood. He is the fruit. Think about this for a second, guys. This is crazy. Think about this. Think about this. Go all the way back to the garden. You've got Adam and the woman. I know this is a little bit weird because we read it, we don't understand the actual story that's going on. How is Adam and Eve, the first people, and then by chapter 5, once Cain and Abel do their thing, Cain goes out to some other people? It's weird when you read it. And people will say to you, well, yeah, that doesn't make sense. It's just a fable. It's not true. What we don't realize is when you read the beginning of Genesis, the first thing it says is Elohim made man and women. He made man and women. He called them mankind. Adam, the word Adam or Adam, is a proper noun, but it's also a pronoun. When it's a pronoun, Adam means humanity. When it's a proper noun, it's your name. The first account in Genesis says he made man and woman. He made humanity, Adam, out of the ground. He made them male and female. Then the next chapter says the creation of the noun, the proper noun, Adam. Adam. And out of him, Eve. And out of them, the sons, Seth and Cain and Abel. So were there other people? Yes. Where? Outside of the temple. What is a priest if he has not a people to teach? That's his job. I know this is foreign to us, but when you think it all the way through, this is the only thing that makes sense. I say that because of this. So, who sinned? The woman or Adam? The woman, it tells us. She ate of it first. She broke the covenant. A virgin woman ate of a fruit that brings sin into the world. Say, wait, a virgin woman? Eve had no children yet. Because the next chapter tells us, and Adam knew his wife Eve, and they brought forth a son, and they named him blah, 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 and then Cain and Abel and so forth, and then he kills him, and they have another son. If that's their first son, if Abel's the first son, then when she committed the sin of eating a fruit she was not supposed to eat of, she was virgin when she did it. Why is that important? Why would that detail mean something or should mean something to all of us? Everything is balanced. He is an Elohim of checks and balances or of equal scales. A woman eats of a fruit, a virgin woman eats of a fruit that brings death into the world. Fast forward all the way to the end of the story, a virgin woman gives birth to the fruit that brings life to the world. Balancing out the scales. Does that make sense? Oh, that's an ooh-ah. That's an ooh-ah. There is so much more to the story than we even realize. And it all goes back to, he wants to bring us back to the mountain. So Messiah has now made the way to the tree of life. He dies on, he is the fruit. It was the fruit of her womb that came out. He's the fruit. And where does he die? On a tree, lifted up high. He's lifted up high. And what flows from him? Blood, yes, his life. But what else comes down the mountain? Water. Water to bring life to the garden. Oh, come on. Come on. You starting to see it? That whole story now is a picture. It's the antitype or the type. I guess Genesis is the antitype, and Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are the type. They're the fulfilled prophecy. They are the fulfilled prophecy. And so the tree of life, he is hung on a tree. The fruit that he tells us you must all eat of. The thing the angels guarded, we now all come and eat freely. Oh, that's another ooh-ah. Think about that for a second. So is there a need now for the temple? No, the very picture of what got them kicked out of the first temple, got them kicked out of Shiloh, got them kicked out of Solomon's temple, is now going to get them because they have again rejected the word. Mashiach, the elders, the leaders. And yet he gives them 40 years to try to understand, to try to wrap their minds around it. And they refuse. And what happens? Consequences. He confirms the covenant again, and destroys Jerusalem and destroys the temple. So, is there any more need for a temple? Yes. Just not like that. Because there is already another high priest wearing the ephod. Look at me, this is number 11 on your notes. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 19. Or do you not know that your body is the dwelling place of the set-apart Spirit who is in you, which you have from Elohim, and you are not your own, for you were bought with a price. Therefore, glorify Elohim in your body and in your spirit, which are of Elohim. Wait. It's the actual garden. Then it's Shiloh. Then it's the first temple. Then it's the second temple. And now what is it? You. Me. We're it. And if we understand the pattern, we've got the gardener already. We've got the high priest. We've got the Melchizedek priest. The way is open now to eat of the fruit. What's our job? Obey the instruction. Don't do what they did in the garden. Don't do what they did at Shiloh. Don't do what they did at the first temple. Don't do what they did at the second temple. Or what will happen? Destruction. Destruction of the temple, the place where he dwells. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 16, do you not know that you are the dwelling place, the temple of Elohim, and that the Spirit of Elohim dwells in you? If anyone destroys the dwelling place of Elohim, Elohim shall destroy him. For the dwelling place of Elohim is set apart, which you are. How do you destroy the dwelling place of Elohim? You bring sin into it, like Eli and Hophni did, like the priest before them did, like Adam did. You do the same thing. But now we have access to the tree of life and forgiveness for sin and the Spirit within us to help us to walk in righteousness, to be righteous, not of our own accord, but to have a standing that's righteous and to learn how to walk as the Master did. To learn from the true gardener or priest of the garden how to live, like it was Adam's job to tell others. Revelation chapter 20, verse 13. Here's the ending of the story. Here's what happens to the temple, to the body that Elohim wishes to dwell in. And the sea gave up the dead who were in it, and death and Sheol gave up the dead who were in them, and they were judged, each one according to his works. And death and Sheol were thrown into the lake of fire, the destruction of the body, the temple. This is the second death. Wait, what was the first death? Being removed from the temple in the garden. This is the second death. Being removed from the temple that you live in. Everything is balanced. Equal weights and measures. And if anyone was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. There's more to all of that, but we just don't have time to go over that. So ultimately, the book of Revelation ends with this. Where do we eventually wind back up at? The mountain. We go back to the mountain. Back to where it all began. Because now we can. It says in the 12 gates, this is the New Jerusalem, the 12 gates were pearls. Each one of the gates had a single pearl. The street was the city of gold, like transparent glass. And I saw no temple in it. This is in the New Jerusalem. For Yah El Shaddai, Almighty, is its dwelling place, and the Lamb. So the first Eden was a temple, not because it had a building, but because who was there? Elohim and his priests. And New Jerusalem, don't forget, this is a mountain. The Messiah is a rock taken out of the mountain, thrown down to the ground to knock down the statue. Daniel sees a mountain, Elohim. The rock hits the statue, it falls down, and what does the rock turn into that hits the statue? Hits Rome. And what does this rock become? It becomes a mountain that fills the whole earth, Messiah. And it's been going on and growing and growing and growing because we are indeed the people of Elohim. The kingdom is growing. And the city had no need of the sun or the moon to shine in it, for the Elohim, the glory of Elohim lightened it. And the Lamb is its lamp, the menorah. And the nations of those who are saved shall walk in its light, and the kings of the earth shall bring their glory into it. And its gates shall not be shut at all by day, for night shall not be there. And they shall bring the glory and the appreciation of the nations into it. We're finally going to get back. Look at what verse 27 says, though. And there shall by no means enter into it whatever is unclean, neither anyone doing abominations and falsehood, but only those who are written in the Lamb's book of life. What will not enter into it? Those who do not wish to obey the instruction, that don't have the instruction written on their heart, and the desire to do it, to live it, to love Elohim, and to love your neighbor as yourself, to do good to those. For those that are thirsty, to give them the drink. For those that are hungry, to give them food. For those that are in prison, to go and visit. That's what it means. And if you don't do those things, and you've never understood who he is, you've rejected the whole thing, or you say you understand like they did before, and yet you break every commandment there is and say in your heart, yeah, but I can do this because I'm saved. He's telling us nothing will enter into this place that's unclean. No one doing abominations or any lies or falsehood, but only those who are written in the Lamb's book of life. Everything becomes cyclical. So the story of the temple's pretty darn important. The temple of which you and I are right now. And we have an opportunity now to eat of the tree of life, to learn, to understand. Doesn't mean you have to be perfect, but you've got to be walking towards perfection. And if you mess up, you have a high priest who is able to forgive us of our sins and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. To me, that's a pretty darn good story. And that is Elohim's word for you for this morning. We're going back to the mountain. We're going back to the mountain. Hopefully that made sense to you guys. Hopefully for those that are watching, it made sense. Certainly check out Wednesday studies. It'll make a lot more sense to you as we put this all together. So the destruction of the temple, it's real in that it happens in 70 AD, but it's also prophecy because it's going to happen again. Not necessarily in a temple being built in Jerusalem, but in the temple in which we all live. This story will get played out again. And either we'll enter in this time, or the same thing that happened in the beginning will happen to those. That's cyclical. That's equal weights and measures. But our Yah is a good Yah. And he loves his people. And he has given us example after example after example that we could wrap our minds around this story. Guys, you cannot fake this. You can't fake the synchronicity of this story. I only shared some of it. I'm going to share more as we get closer to Passover. The parallels are mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. But I'm hungry. Abba, we love you. We thank you for your word. We ask and we pray that you would forgive us and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. Father, though we stumble, we pray that you would lift us up, that you would grant us your spirit, that we might walk in you, that you would remind us that we have a right standing before you. But Father, that you desire for your word to be written not in stone or even upon paper, but Father, upon our hearts, a desire to want to live the way you've asked us to live. Help us to keep your instruction in all that we do, to love you with all of our heart, our soul, our mind, and our strength, and to love our neighbor as ourselves. In this, the whole law is fulfilled and hangs. In the Master's name, amen. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you enjoyed that, got something out of it. Listen to it again, download the notes. Join us Tuesday. We'll have that last part. It's not going to be the last part. We're going to be going on for weeks and weeks. But the last part of Matthew 24, the first couple of verses, leading right up to the destruction of the temple. We're going to be talking about sending out his angels to gather the elect and what that might actually mean. In the meantime, guys, have an awesome rest of your Shabbat. Say with me, everybody, Shabbat. Peace.